Aga, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. And I really just want to tell your story and show off all the amazing things that you've done. But why don't we start with who you are? Why don't you introduce yourselves to our audience and
Mhm.
what you do and who you help?
I'm Aga Siuda, owner of Grassroots Design. We are a small boutique agency helping nonprofits and social good businesses with, of course, branding and marketing strategies.
Amazing. And I particularly love that you are in this nonprofit space. So many people want to be in it and so many people struggle in it. Why don't you start by telling us kind of what's the history of your business? How did you get into it? How long have you been running it?
Yeah, this agency, I started right after I quit my full-time job, working exclusively with nonprofits at one of the largest social good companies in the States. The company creates software that helps nonprofits fundraise and manage their constituent data. And I work there as a website designer and art director. And it's given me, so much insight and visibility into that industry and the need that was just so great. I gotta say, it feels pretty good walking away from your desk at the end of work day and feeling pretty good about, what you've done and who you've helped and playing a tiny little role in making the world a better place. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but I mean, it really is. And so right before COVID, I decided to leave that really good job with a
right
dream.
before, right before
Right
COVID.
before, yes, with a dream of starting my own agency. I knew at first it was going to be a freelance business, but I knew that I wanted to stick with that vertical. I wanted to work with nonprofits and social good businesses. And yes, COVID presented serious challenges, but I stayed afloat. I took on a few small nonprofit clients, but I did take on a bunch of other work that, just needed to keep the business going and not totally sink during that hard time, not knowing where things were going. But that just sort of solidified it in my brain that I needed to stick with that client, that really mattered, that work mattered. I felt, I'm a big believer that, you feel everything in your body before you know it in your brain. And, how you feel when you work with specific types of clients, it tells you the whole story. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question. That's what made me stay with this client. That's what made me really continue with this direction. And, if anything, I've just become more laser focused in positioning myself to that audience.
No, I think that's a great story. And it's really important to show that, it's important to work with people that you really enjoy working with and have some, reason beyond just, oh, well, I know them or I've worked with them. Like you have a mission behind it. And I think that
Yeah.
probably shows up in how you work with them and how they view you too. So I think it's great. Take us back to a little bit before we started working together. What did your business look like? How was it running? How were you getting clients? Give us the details.
Yeah. So I was always very invested in creating methodologies and processes. And it's probably because I have ADHD and my brain, as the creative brain would, just goes a million miles an hour in different directions. And so I kind of very early on, without knowing that I had this neurodiversity and this special power, started putting together processes and, ways of delivering services to
Mm.
clients that kept me sane, kept them calm, and reassured that everything was getting done. And I always, felt that work ethic was extremely important. So when I started my business, I still had those processes in place. And I thought I was, following pretty solid methodologies and kind of kept rolling. But I couldn't avoid working late nights and weekends despite building in those quote unquote efficiencies into my
Mm.
process. And I just couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong because I just really knew in my core that I shouldn't be working this much, that things are kind of coming apart at the seams where they shouldn't, even though I thought I was setting clear expectations and I thought, we're doing everything right in those projects. Things were still kind of, lagging behind, or clients were kind of, going into the Neverland, not answering emails and not following through. And so, what made me join the mastery program was um, that, and I think this is really important to say, a major mindset shift that I went through that year. I had done a lot of work on myself and really trying to figure out who is Aga, what does she need in life? What does she want? And once I was able to figure out who that authentic person is and what her needs are, you kind of just dropped out of the sky. It's funny how these things happen, when you align and when you know what you need, you really truly know what you need, you start seeing those things, right?
Mm,
In the world. So that's how I ended up in the program. But things were kind of just chaos. Like,
chaos. Well,
yeah,
well, working on the weekends is never fun, especially if
no.
that you have a system to avoid it.
Mhm.
And you said I don't have any idea why. How long did these projects usually end up lasting, and about how much were you charging for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I work with, not tiny nonprofits, but
Okay.
smaller nonprofits that have a marketing budget and medium-sized nonprofits, and of course, technology companies. But projects on larger websites would take, somewhere around 4 to 6 months sometimes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
because I just couldn't rein them in. And it
Mm.
was always about content. And I get it, big size, totally get it. And it was sort of okay with me because I've watched this happen in my corporate job and I knew this was the norm kind of back then,
Mm-hmm.
until I realized that there is another way, that you can
Mm-hmm.
actually totally flip the script and control the process and make it so easy for yourself and for the clients. And yeah, I mean, like the projects went from, 4 to 6 months and charging about $7,000 for those smaller projects upward, to larger projects, to easily doubling that. Now, my smallest package is 9,500, and then we go up from there to 16 and then 32 and plus. And I've been selling those packages and we have been running intensives, and clients are just so relieved and happy. And my team, my small, tiny little team, is happy and efficient. And so I just have to brag, it's taken us light years from where we were to where we are today.
That's amazing. Well, you're jumping ahead, Aga, but that's okay. I love the
Okay.
enthusiasm. Well, tell me a little bit about the intensives, actually. We'll go
Mhm.
there first. These are big nonprofits. There's a lot of moving parts. As I tell everybody in our program, it's like, you can intensify in a lot of different ways. And I've really admired how you have made it your own. Do you think that there were what kind of changes, and I'm including mindset shift changes, maybe, do you think you had
Mhm.
to make in order to go from what you were doing before to be able to intensify your process?
Yes, I had to get out of my head about the fact that people might be skeptical about the intensive process. And I needed to prepare a narrative and sort of set those expectations correctly to make sure that they understood the value that they were getting out of that intensive short period of work. Because, and I'll be honest with you, I was debating whether your program was for me for that reason, because I knew working with these larger nonprofits who have to go back, the leaders I'm working with, they go back to the board, they have other checkpoints along the way before they can launch the project.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if the intensive process could work for them. But then immediately after I started your program, I realized, yes, it can work and I can totally customize this. And I have done it on a couple of really big implementations, Rebrand Plus, massive website with a large nonprofit, where we sort of chunked phases and parts into intensives. So we did sort of mini workshops, but I ran those intensive like you teach.
Mm.
So we have those check-ins throughout the day. And I was shocked. I mean, honestly, like I really wanted it to work, but I didn't have a ton of faith in my clients. I didn't know if they could actually do it with like 11 people in their room working on this stuff. There were so many potential ways it could have fallen apart, but we were done by 4 p.m. They were done with a massive amount of content for the website. And so we did that content intensive. I chunked it sort of as a content intensive for the website. And then we did a visual design intensive. And so you can still do this. You can still sort of partition the project
Mm-hmm.
into separate intensives for each phase. And it really speeds stuff up and it just makes everybody so comfortable and relaxed about the whole thing. It was kind of fun for them.
Absolutely. Because they're making these decisions anyway. Why
Yeah,
must we drag them out? Why? Nobody wants this on their to-do list. They want to get it
no.
done. That's so interesting. Yeah. So just the mindset shift of
Mhm.
they will be open to this.
Yes.
And how did you like so now let's go backwards a little bit, right? Because you didn't
Mhm.
start with the intensives, you started with the lead product, the LP. What was
Mhm.
your experience selling that?
Oh my gosh, that was probably the biggest shift for me, moving from responding to RFPs and writing endless proposals and never hearing back, just throwing stuff at the wall, to making meaningful connections. You teach this, how to really make those connections work for you. What I really loved about that is, Pia, the honest, kind of authentic way that you teach us to do it. It's not salesy. It's not the we nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be a salesy person and sounds kind of cheesy on your sales emails or phone calls. We're not made to do that. But what I love is that it's direct. It offers value straight away. And when I started speaking to my ideal client, which were those nonprofit leaders, who were looking for more engagement with their mission, with their brand through rebrand, messaging, website design, I started seeing conversions. I mean, I think for that ideal client, it is now at 100%. For every LP that I have delivered, I have converted that person to a client. The only ones that did not convert were people who were totally not even close to my ideal client. Isn't
Mm,
that funny? I mean,
yeah.
it's like the universe is telling you, like, this is not going to
Right.
work for you. It's a good thing it didn't work out, right?
Right. So you're doing the LPs and they're converting up, but how did you close the LPs? You've got clients, you've got your ideal clients are asking for RFPs. What was that experience like?
Yeah. So these were people who I have connected with directly in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of reaching out to a, RFP, I would reach out to them on LinkedIn, seeing
Uh,
what they needed, if I could offer some support in a genuine, helpful way. And they were open to having a conversation, that fit call. And on the fit call, they realized, yeah, I mean, there's definitely great energy here. Let's see where I can take it from here. And what I love about how you teach how to talk about the LP is the directness of it. That message is so clear and direct, starting with, this is exactly how we work. And then you lay out how the action plan works. I think that was the biggest game changer for me in converting from that fit call to the LP. And then from the LP, there's so much value, Pia. There's so much value. And Eleanor was my first reviewer on my very first LP, and the feedback she gave me, I mean, it's like encoded in my brain. Every time I write an LP, I do it in the same way, and they're all converting because every sentence has a purpose, it has a meaning, it offers value. The way I think about the LP is, if they don't hire me, can they take this and make impact on their own? Is this easy enough for them to follow? Am I giving them actionable steps, or is it just fluff that they could have read in a blog article, right?
mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it is. And my most recent one that I sold, that I honestly didn't think that they had any budget for me. I was just excited to do the LP for them. They said at the end, they said, we don't have money, but we're going to figure this out and we will pay you because we know we have to work with you. And also, you're not charging enough for this stuff, right? So I was like, okay, great. And meaning the LP, because
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
so
yeah.
much value in there.
Right. Amazing. Right. And we want them to feel that way because then they pay us for the big thing, right?
Yeah,
They just see so much
absolutely.
value. Well, I have to say, like, it's also just such a testament to the amount of value that you have to offer your clients. I mean, this is such a
Thank
great
you.
story of, we give the process and the framework and this is how you say it and all of that, but ultimately the meat of the LP is the strategic thinking of the person writing it. So, not surprised that they're all leveling up, right? We're giving you kind of a container in which to deliver that so they can really see it and build that trust with you. I'm so delighted to hear that. And I think also, again, specifically in the nonprofit world, I feel like it's a world where a lot of people think they do it this way and they have lots of people, board members and decision makers, and this isn't going to work for them. And, I think it's a testament to how you're doing it too, but also just it can work, but you
Mhm.
have to be positioning yourself as in an advisory role.
Yes.
It reminds me of, and I might be getting this wrong, so you correct me, but I remember a post that you wrote a while ago. I think you were very early on, where you actually got someone who was asking for an RFP to buy your LP. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how did you get them to buy the LP when they were asking for an RFP?
Okay, so here's how this went. This is a local client. I'm in Charleston, and I never really had any local clients, but
Mm.
I connected with this woman who runs this foundation here in Charleston on LinkedIn, and we did the LP. She absolutely loved it, but she said, I just ran this by my board of directors, and they're making me release an RFP. And I was like, oh my dude. And because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, every marketing agency, and they're great marketing agencies here in Charleston, they will compete for this, and I'm not gonna make it. And she goes, but I wanted to ask your permission if I could use this LP, this action plan, as the RFP. And I
It's
was
like
like,
nice and
sure,
offensive.
yes. And she said, and of course, I need you to bid for this.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, sure. So I kind of walked away with kind of a good feeling about this. I'm thinking, okay, she'll probably want to work with me. What ended up happening is she did release it. I was trying to partner with a PR firm here locally because they wanted everybody local. And so I was interviewing these potential partners for this, and I'm talking to this woman, and halfway through the conversation, we realized we're bidding for the same project. What ended up happening is the foundation selected me despite me having the highest price, and went with my recommendation for this PR firm, which, we're collaborating beautifully together. And it's just like, it's really good. It's really good. Magic happens.
Oh my gosh. So they buy the LP, they use it to the RFP, and then they pick you anyway, even though you're the most expensive one.
Yeah.
We can't see what the alternate universe would be, but when I hear that story, I think to myself, if the nonprofit just asked for the RFPs, what is the likelihood that they would go with the highest bidder?
None.
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 Yeah.
You have no presence. You can't speak to the value that you are presenting, in your work. I think that being able to talk through the LP with your clients on Zoom or over coffee is everything.
Mm,
It's everything.
right.
Because there's so many gaps that you have an opportunity to fill when you have them in person with you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what sells the LP. It's the presentation too. It's, of
Mm-hmm.
course, it's everything in the LP, but
And the
but it's the
interview.
presentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They have
Because,
to like it. People want to work with people they like and trust. Yes,
right.
isn't that what you say?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and they're experiencing you, and you command a presence and
Yeah.
confidence, and that's what they need. And I mean, in business it's certainly true that when somebody trusts you, they'll pay extra simply
Yes.
because this is not worth the risk
Mm-hmm.
to hire someone that might not be as good or might not get you the outcome you want. So
Yeah.
if we feel like, well, Aga's definitely going to do this, how could we possibly risk it to save a few $1,000s? We just can't.
Yeah. Absolutely. Which is why authority is so important, right?
Which is why authority is so important, both external and internal, right?
Yes.
Just being able to show up with that kind of
Yeah.
confidence. This is all such great stories that obviously feel so validated. I'm so happy that this has been so well executed. And again, like, we provide the model and all the teachings, and then people have to take it and actually implement it and embody it. I'm curious if there are any other like mindset shifts that have come to mind that you've either struggled with or just have noticed that you've made over implementing all of these processes.
I mean, I think it's pretty natural for us to feel a little bit uncertain about our own abilities sometimes, unsure about what we're doing is right, or is it going to piss people off or delight people. You just don't know. You just talked about this on your recent podcast too, just kind of feeling nervous about making change in your business, changing process, changing how you talk about things, how you position yourself. I've always had a ton of blogs around being out there and visible on social media. And it's changed only because you've pushed me to be honest, but I'm
Yay!
still
It's
working on it. I
working.
mean, look, yes, win for both of us, honestly, because I'm posting things. I'm creating engagement. I see that it's resonating, it's useful. I have a major block around being on video for some reason. But you know what? I've put some out there and nobody hated on it. They're terrible, but that's okay. People are like, okay, yay, Aya.
Listen, like, what do I say? If you're not like embarrassed by your first videos, then that means you're not growing, right? So we just
Oh,
got to
girl.
get through
Yeah.
them. Believe me, I have a lot of old videos that I should probably take down.
I mean, it's to the point where a friend of mine was like, wait, is that an AI bot? I was like, no, it's me. Because I'm so scripted, I'm so nervous
Oh,
that I just overthink them. I just try to be all proper and professional, instead of just talking like I'm talking to you, which somehow is easy when I'm on a phone with a friend, but it's not so easy when you're putting yourself out there on social media.
it is a really different thing when you're by
Hmm.
yourself looking at a camera than
Yeah.
somebody like just having a conversation. Red light syndrome, they call it, is real,
Is
you
it?
know.
Oh my gosh, you're so natural. I mean, do you have any advice around that? How do you overcome
Yeah.
this?
You just do like
You just
the
do
you just do the
it.
you just do the videos you're embarrassed about. You just do you just do the
Yeah,
podcast interviews or the recordings. Because when I first started recording this and I was doing
yeah,
those first episodes, oh my gosh, the red light syndrome and trying to just speak and yeah, it was terrifying. Definitely
yeah.
with the videos, just terrifying. We're just completely I mean, I don't run out of things to say and I the video would turn on. I'd be like, I have no idea what I think. Do I have
I
any
know.
interesting things to say? Nothing. So it's just practice. I don't think
Okay.
there's
Well,
any
thanks.
other way through it. So you're doing it. You're doing it,
I'm doing
Aga.
it. I'm
Yeah.
doing it. Yes.
And yeah. And I know that they're good and you're just being self critical and they will get better, and they'll just always be
Thanks.
getting better. I mean, gosh, I hope I get
Yeah.
better than I am now, you
Yeah,
know?
we have to practice. I mean,
We have
otherwise,
to
what, we're going to go
practice.
from 0 to 100?
Yeah.
That doesn't
No.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And also nobody starts and does the something for the first time perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? That would just doesn't make any sense. So, can I just ask you a more personal question? Like,
Sure.
how has this kind of switch in your business, how has it shown up in your life, maybe in your how you live your life or your family or like your day to day? Has it changed anything?
In a major way. I have had some goals, financial goals for the business, and I actually wrote it down in a note on my phone last year and I took a screenshot of it. And when I read it just recently, it just like made me cry a little bit because everything came true. And so besides the fact that I wrote down that I wanted to work with clients who really valued me and my expertise and were willing to pay money for it. I also had a financial goal in there that totally hit it already in this year. So
Wow.
thank you so much, for that. So financial growth has been amazing. My business grew by 50% over last year. That's given me, I mean, infinite freedom, right? Money is freedom. It allows you to, pay down your debt and travel more and spend time with family. And so that's exactly what we did this past summer. We all, I'm from Poland, and so is my husband, and we always travel back home for the summer. But in the past, I've always worked. I went home for 2 months and worked for 2 months from our summer cottage. And that was the norm. You run a business, you work. Everybody has this perception that, oh, you run your business, you're working 24/7. And that's what I did. But this past summer, Pia, I took 6 weeks off. We went to Portugal for a month. We spent it there, and I really didn't do anything. I took a couple sales calls with clients and I sold those projects too, which is amazing. And then when I went to Poland for the rest of the summer, I just sporadically sort of checked in on projects, and my small team was jamming. They knew the process, they were running with things, and I really didn't really need to do anything, just an hour here or there. So I could comfortably say that I took the summer off.
Wow.
That's what this has allowed me to do. And I can say with full confidence that without this knowledge that you've provided me with, without this format, this process, I could not have gotten there this quickly. Maybe one day I would have figured it out somehow, but this was such a shortcut. It just felt like lightning struck, and everything just made sense all of a sudden.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. You're giving me
Yeah,
such chills.
I
You
know.
You made 50% more and you took the summer off. That's
Yes.
incredible. That's all
Yes.
I want for all of you.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's really hard when you have kids too, right? You're because they're watching you. They're watching you put your attention elsewhere and put your time elsewhere. And I felt so guilty about that always. I mean, I don't know, might be TMI, but the final straw for me when I was working full time was when I was working late yet another night on a call with my manager, trying to put out yet another fire, and my little kids were running around and asking me for dinner and chewing gum because they were hungry and I couldn't step away from the stupid computer. And that was just like a super low for me. I remember that moment because I remember how it felt, how terrible it was. And I thought to myself that no job is worth this kind of feeling. I don't want to be this kind of person. I don't want to be this kind of mother. And I don't want to be this kind of employee that resents the work. So something needed to shift, change. And so I really can say with full confidence that it is possible to find balance, to save your sanity, to make good money, and to do good work.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And that's so, especially when your kids are little, it's like you
Yeah.
cannot get these years back. It's so
No.
important for us to be able to spend that time with them. I mean, I think
Yes.
about it every day,
Yeah.
like in all those moments, because gosh, how lucky are we to be able to be with
So
them
lucky.
before
Yeah.
they go.
They will go. My kids are
They
12
will
and
go.
16, and we spend so much time together. We eat dinner every night together at a table and breakfast every single day, and they talk to us. We have time, we have space, because I don't have to rush to be on a call or to be in a meeting, or working late. I never, ever, ever work nights and weekends anymore, ever. That's like a personal rule I've set for myself, and I'm like, I don't care. It's just not that important. And I never have to, honestly.
It's amazing.
Isn't
You
that
should
cool?
share this more in our community.
I should.
Yeah, you're an inspiration, Aga. This is so beautiful. And this
Thanks.
is, everyone is at various stages of achieving this, but just being able to hear you do it is, I know, inspiring a lot of people. So thank you so much for sharing your story and for just being such an amazing part of our community, like showing up and doing the work and like making it happen. It is why I do this is because of
Thank you.
you.
Thank you
So
so much. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, your passion shows.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Where can everybody find you?
My website is grassrootsdesign.com, and I'm on LinkedIn. That's it. That's where I
Hey,
live.
we're going to go find you on LinkedIn and you're going to be posting videos and we're all going to be like, wow, Aga, you're amazing on video.
Is that a bot?
Yeah. Are you a bot? You're too perfect. Are you a bot? No. That's what I thought you meant when you it's like it's like I guess
Yeah.
yeah. What do we think are bot? I was like, isn't that not a compliment? You like are
Yeah,
looking flawless.
it's like
What do you mean?
it's like this is too perfectly scripted. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, hey, when the bots look like us for real, like that will be harder.
For
There's still
sure.
like a little bit of it. Thank you again, Aga. So appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And let's keep growing. Only bigger things ahead for you. I know that.
Yes, I'm just starting to expand. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Pia.